Hey guys, how's it going?
GM, how you doing?
Howdy. I think we have most of our speakers up, waiting on my valiant co-host Bunzy, whose internet nuked, and therefore, day in the life in technology. How's it going, guys?
Going great. Gotta have Bunsey, man. He's kind of the 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 whole mood. That guy is wild.
We need the mullet
We
man.
need the mullet for the culture. But that's all right. I mean, I think we have a sustainable group of extremely cool people up here. I don't know if it could equal the total power of a mullet, but maybe if we all band together, we could achieve greatness. Something in like we're all gonna make it category, if not just for the culture. Um, so yeah, we have a space today on digital identities, um, which should be an interesting topic. Everyone here has a PFP and a name, as is the relationship to Twitter and all social medias, that you must take the form of a name and probably a picture. Back in the early internet, it used to be just a name, um, until probably the introduction of things like forums. I don't know about early internet, and I wanted to just open up with a soft question about early internet. And it could be a little bit of a vulnerable one, but I wanted to go around and ask if everyone would be willing to volunteer the first known username, whether that be on AOL, AIM, MSN, or maybe you're a later internet person. I want to know what your first handle was. And if you don't want to say exactly what it was, that's okay. You can like give me the essence. Um, because the essence of mine, I can't believe I'm saying this in a recorded space, but the first one was related to frogs, and the second one was related to Linkin Park. So, yeah, let's. Erin's enthusiastically reacting to that, so Erin, why don't you go first?
Okay, I can go. Actually still use this. Like, what do I use it for? I know I have to type it in. I think it's my Apple ID email still. Like, I have not updated like my iCloud Apple ID to not be this. But when I was 5, I made a Yahoo email, and then this was also my username for like everything else. That was Awesome Snail Master. I love snails. They're like my favorite animal. Always have, always will. And I guess Awesome Snail Master was like the best that 5-year-old Erin could come up with. But I don't think I have access to the Yahoo account anymore, but I'm pretty sure that Yahoo account is still like my login for many things that are probably way too crucial to like my digital footprint that like they should not be linked to that account.
That's silly. Awesome Snail Master. Okay, so you were like a snail kid?
Unfortunately, yes.
That's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I said I was a frog kid, so it's GG for us. Awesome Snail Master. That's a riot. Okay. What proper? What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm on the later internet train myself. I think for I never really used AIM or MSN or anything like that. Though I will say, growing up, when we visited my grandma's house, I did have the joy of experiencing dial-up internet, which I think throws people off when I say that, given my age. But yeah, I think for most of my life, I really just used my real name. And it wasn't until I got my first computer that I don't know why I did this, but this was, well over probably, I want to say 15 years ago when I got my own kind of personal computer just for me. Um, and I named the hard drive on it proper. I still don't know why I did that, and it never really made an appearance again until, even working in the Bitcoin and the broader crypto space, I went by my real name up until 2019, 2020 maybe. And for some reason, proper just popped back into my head. I go, heck yeah, that's gonna be my name now.
I
And
love that.
rest is history.
There's a high degree of purity in using your own name. Although I think some people with early versions of their name may have used cool numbers or letters to kind of accessorize it. But if you've been proper since basically the inception of your relationship with the internet, that's pretty beautiful.
I will say, little did I know that calling myself proper would set me up in perpetuity for people saying, "Oh, that's a proper name right there," and just kind of analogous jokes. So a little bit of a something I didn't expect that I now have to deal with for the rest of the time.
A word to the wise, guys, so you might have to pay long term, and you don't get dividends for stuff like that. Gabe, what do you think? Early screen name, handle, what have you?
I'm too old, so like it was just proper names. I remember even like in college or a little later when everyone had funky names. I'm like, what are these internet kids doing these days? Uh, so yeah, I messed up my NFT career huge by not having a cool name like X Copy or Thank You X or one of these names that I think are synonymous now with crypto art. So giant mistake. Just kept with my name for everything.
Well, the beauty of that is that should you wish to pursue that, that is what the alt is for. It is the identity you want to build separate or maybe in relation to. No one says you and your alt can't talk. No one says you and your alt cannot go at it, have fights on the internet, whatever you want to do to increase drama. You could FUD yourself. I don't know. Maybe you don't want.
Does anyone say you and your alt can't kiss?
I mean, that's
You and your alt can.
maybe I'm X copy and I fight myself all the time.
I love that. Sways, I feel like you have got a good one baking.
Well, yeah, so I'm also pretty dang old. And my first like username was for an email on AOL over at the grandparents' house. And when I was really young, I played like little league baseball, coach pitch and machine pitch baseball. And I was the youngest kid there. And the coach called me the kid. And we were all kids, but he referred to me as the kid. So it kind of stuck. And that was my first, like email was the kid with two D's and I guess a couple of numbers behind it. I can't remember the numbers, but yeah, the kid.
I like that. That really has the essence of like a 90s sports movie, like with a come up arc. And, the lesson was like it really just took the power of friendship to
100%.
overcome. So I like that. I like that. Um, Parker, I feel like you might have a good one too.
Well, I've been trying to rack my brain and I can't remember my super early ones. I was definitely online at a very young age with like AOL up in the chat rooms, age, sex, location all day long. I don't remember those names, but I do remember when I was 13 and Final Fantasy VII came out. I made my username Eris13 with Roman numerals, which I thought was like super cool. And I was like, oh yeah, this is who I am forever. I am Eris.
That's pretty beautiful. I think well, first of all, I love how many people are willing to volunteer the AOL information. So that's like the most telling on which side of the coin you fall. But there's something about what you just said, which was when you create that identity, like how convinced you are that that will be you for the rest of forever, right? You're like, this will never change. And in many ways,
Totally.
we do.
I had found myself. Yeah.
But it always, I think it stays true to our interior self, whether or not we change or become. Moral, you want to throw up your first handle, first username, first screen name that you may have been rocking? Moral, my
Can
friend.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've had a plethora of different usernames.
Are you going to indulge us in any?
Like they've all been different because I grew up in an era where like I was always gaming as a kid, so it was like Xbox and you could change your name frequently. So it was a mixture of things. Like I was like trying to do clan stuff with gaming, and so my name was never like consistent until I like stopped on IRL moral or morale, whatever you want to call it. But it was like a safe practice of my name, kind of like a path that you want to follow, which is having a strong moral compass type of thing.
Wow, the lore is deep on that one. gotta say.
Yeah, pretty deep.
Bunzi, welcome. Oh wait, I gotta give you co-host.
Oh, what's up? Um, Dude, yeah, mine's kind of random and not as cool. Uh, I used to play a bunch of MMO RPGs. I used to play EverQuest, and there was like this really high level dude that looked really cool, and his name was Bunzi, so I stole it and wanted to be as cool as he was. He spelt it differently, but then it's always just been like my login and my password. I'm just kidding. But it's always been something I've used, and it's funny because like Bunzi account was made just to trade and just to like follow things on Twitter. And it's really interesting because before this, I used to produce music and like have an Instagram and all this stuff, and I really didn't like Instagram or Facebook. I didn't really participate too much in them. But it was crazy once I had like a anon account, how much it allowed me to like kind of be myself, because when I was doing the music, like everything was like, it had to be cool. It had to be, I worried about what like my friends from high school thought, just dumb shit that didn't matter. And then doing the Bunzi account, I was just like, oh, social media can, I think I just, my personality fits best on Twitter. And then it just stuck. And then people are like, think the story's cool of like where the name Bunzi came from, and it's not that cool. So, um, but yeah, I used to play a bunch of video games.
Wow. Wow. Sometimes the handle is what sets you free, huh?
The handle is what will set you
Interesting.
free. The chain. Once you get chained down to a chain, you're free.
Let's hear from Shibboleth. Shibboleth. Got to hit me with that pronunciation there.
I say it's shibboleth.
Shibboleth. Well, that's how I'll say it too.
But it's interpretable.
Ooh, I like that.
I've always been shibboleth.
Really?
Probably since I was born. I think the doctor said that word when I came out, and I picked it up. But I like it as a digital identity name, because what it means is like a word that represents affiliation. It's like a shibboleth is like a phrase you say that represents your affiliation with a group. Like GM is like a Web3 shibboleth, I guess. It's like a simple answer. So I thought it's good as a name, because that's what a name is too. It just represents some affiliation with some storyline. But the reason the pronunciation is interpretable is from the origin of the word shibboleth. Was like, it used to be at the gates. They would ask you to say this word, and if you, based on how you pronounced it, they would know what tribe you were in, and they would let you in or not. So it's totally interpretable how you want to say it.
I love that. It's like a cultural utterance, which is an indicator and a signifier. Um,
Exactly.
is this a borrowed word? Like, does this exist within a group, or this is like what you're creating or generating, like as a means of transmitting that
No,
meaning?
that it's from the Bible originally. It's
Ah,
real old, but in English it's like that usage of it in English is newer, like since the 1700s something. But I haven't been using it that long. I've been using it since I'm only like 15 years old, so I've still only been using
yeah.
it
So
15
not
years.
since the 1600s.
No.
Could have fooled me, because that was a bit wise. Payman, want to volunteer? Original names, users, username, handle.
GM, yeah. First of all, so many dope handles and names, and I'm kind of like Sways and Gabe, kind of a little bit more old school, older. So
I see your mic is off, but we don't hear you. Or
oh
do you
shoot,
guys hear me?
I do.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Should
Okay,
I
it's just me.
go down and come back up?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Take a lap. We'll be waiting. Um, see, we've invited Chaz Gold. That's a name. Chaz
What's
Gold.
going on? I wasn't always Chaz Gold online though. My first moniker ever online was Chazarazi, which was like really funny because like it's like a play of words between like Chaz and paparazzi. So Chazarazi because
Sounds like
I
a
did a lot of
luxury
photography.
auto vehicle.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
like a
actually built
luxury
a
auto
whole
vehicle.
brand. I built a whole brand behind that actually.
Interesting. Yeah, isn't I mean, brands are generally built behind names, if not behind imagery, but before that, more greatly symbols. Not to say
Yeah,
that they're
being a
basic.
photographer, like I built my whole like nightclub. I did nightlife and concert photography for like the last like 25 years, and I still use that name on Facebook with a page that I have that has like 15 years of photography on it of events. So it's kind of cool.
That's interesting. I'm thinking of how many like expired profile names have like on like Instagram or just like other materials of our existence that just become fragmented and die, and like we hope that they're like never seen ever again. Um if you don't like kill them yourself, they just become like an old Tumblr that you hope no one ever finds. Or maybe you do, or maybe you just return to that in order to rediscover the aspects of yourself that were online in the virtual reality world at that time. It's kind of a beautiful little time capsule experience. Anytime you've got like a social media or a feed like that, you can like truly time capsule your thoughts. For those who don't like perhaps
I
author.
still have that Tumblr. I still have Chazarazi as the Tumblr name. I still have it. It's still active.
I'm willing to bet a few speakers up here have a couple antiquated tumblers. I can't. I feel like it's like can't be non-zero. Um, so that was interesting for everyone who just went around and spoke their original name. I think it says a lot about you. But does it say as much as the PFP you choose to represent today? Let's get into it.
Did you want me to? Can everybody hear me? I don't know if I'm back.
You're so back, dude. We are so back.
Sorry to interrupt the next segue, but
No, no, no. Hit it.
yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm a little bit older too, and so I just went with my nickname, which is the first four letters of my name. Paymon is my name, and I went with Pame 777. And I love seven. That the number seven is one of my favorite numbers. So it's kind of boring, but somebody told me later on that I need to put my whole name for as an artist name, which I kind of disagreed, but still kind of agreed to it, I guess, because I respected this friend artist. So I put my my PFP is like Paymon. So but Pame, which he said it sounds like pain. And I'm like, okay, well, most artists are in pain. If they if they don't have any threshold for pain, then you know they're not making good art. But yeah, that was my handle, seven Pame 777.
I believe in the number aspect and the numerology aspect. Maybe Aaron has a take on that, but I think that the numbers you select for yourself also are part of what you're trying to create and trying to generate, perhaps by design or just, I mean, could it be purely coincidence? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear more because I just like the three. No, I mean, I just liked 777. I was born in July, so seven is one of my favorite numbers, and I just decided to use that and make it 777. Kind of like, yeah, just went with it. I appreciate you asking me and having me on stage.
Of course. Of course.
By the way, Gabe, it's not too late for you. I think you can still do Gabe, triple X Gabe, or something like that. Or if you're so into like, X copy. And no, I'm just kidding.
It's never too late.
Maybe I'm Banksy.
Gotta keep them guessing. If not, you just build the cloud of your own alts that all guess against each other. That's the psyop, right? You guys, by the way, this is not like a pure mic passing chat. I just want to like set the tone that you can like unmic and like kind of yabble a little babble, get into it, guys. It's not that formal.
Yeah, well, to say to Proper that space yesterday for the Grailer show was super cool with Ria and the McCoys and Termayo Hess. And I just that's a really interesting show. And I dug hearing about that yesterday from Mr. Proper. And oh, you can, he's but
No, I was just gonna say no. I appreciate that. I don't want to. Hopefully, don't want to derail the conversation too much on that. But no,
she said we can babble. She said we can.
It was
oh,
So
true.
approved. Babel approved.
Okay, okay, screw it. Let's babble. No, I appreciate that, and that was one of those conversations where I definitely, when you have Luke from Grailers, who is an outstanding curator, and you have Rhea, Kevin, and Jennifer and Sarah, who are, they've been building, putting work on Bitcoin for a decade plus at this point, and other chains for that matter. And then you also had Kevin Buist, who is also, just an excellent kind of contextualizer in terms of art history and, what we're doing on Bitcoin now, so on and so forth. I definitely felt like the odd one out, but, it was, it was a fantastic conversation, and seeing them bring their kind of thinking to Bitcoin and ordinals for that matter, and kind of how they interpret Bitcoin as a time chain, and kind of those inherent aspects of chronology in what is at the end of the day just a time stamping mechanism, aka Bitcoin. But no, long story short, I appreciate that. I'm glad you liked the conversation, and hopefully we can do more of those.
yeah, it's the recording is there. I super recommend. But it does also apply to this space here, because it made me think a lot about, because it was all, these projects are all about time. That was the proposal, and it made me think of what this project that Erin is doing, which is also time, also blockchain as a clock, her ephemera, which was like in the midst of its mysterious pre-launching. But I mean, that that was like, that's its own thing, like its own take on the like timepiece aspect of a blockchain. And that was like the first time I had thought of it in that way. And then it was interesting hearing then what those three are, how they interpreted like the call for art about that, hearing like, yeah, the McCoys and Rhea and Moas like thinking about time. But it does weave back in to the people here, I suppose. But that the recording is still there. I recommend to people who are listening to listen to that. Look, maybe we can make this space a space worth listening to the recording. One that people will say, "Go back! Did you hear that? Seize control space." um,
I will say on that note too, something that I'm not gonna say it was like a humbling comment or anything, but it's at its core level, as you mentioned, Aaron, in describing Atlantis with ephemera are, they're at a baseline level, yeah, it's it's just some idea. It's a very broad concept, this idea of time and deep time, and so on and so forth. But I think and for that matter, people have been tackling that in a technological aspect long before blockchains existed, and many times since the advent of Bitcoin and other chains and whatnot. And it's certainly it. There's a lot. There's certainly, while it is a broad concept, I think both what we're doing and the Inscribing Atlantis team with Aaron are doing, and just in general, there are just like so many kind of rabbit holes you can fall down in the context of what time means, what does it mean in the technology aspect. you know um, Kevin Bree said this really nice kind of quote from this article he wrote about the show saying, is the goal of technology to create perfect lovers or perfect machines? Are we going toward technological perfection, or are we going toward celebrating the inherent differences? And that didn't explain it very well, but I think there's a lot of fun, just like, and really nuanced rabbit holes that you can fall down in what is an otherwise like very broad concept. And it's great to see that, not just us, but other people tackling the same idea from a different perspective too, on Bitcoin for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of is like that quotation you mentioned is like sort of maybe the point where it does tie back to identity, because it's like if it's not about just being machines, if it is about like being perfect lovers, then that's a matter of being someone to someone else rather than just making a system. So like it's like, because time, like otherwise, like making time work about time is sort of the opposite of making something personal or something identity based. It's like time is just something that happens to everybody, happens no matter who you are. But like,
I,
oh, go ahead.
I have something to contribute there because the way I see identity, I see it as something that's always in flux. So identity is inherently subject to change. We all have this sense that there's some sort of continuity to who we are. But if we actually examine it, like, how much do you even have in common with who you were at this time yesterday? Like, can you remember what you were thinking about, what you were feeling? Are we're always shifting and changing. Are you really the same person you were when you were 5 years old, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 onwards? The identity is tied with time. So there's something that, the way I see it, what goes beyond identity is what we really are. The identities are always shifting, just like our PFPs. So yeah,
That's fascinating.
that's
So,
my
right,
my
we
thought
have
on it.
identities which are just like taking shape in a sort of form, and it's temporal, right? It's moving, it's shifting, it's changing, and it's also um, at the mercy of the viewer, right? Like the viewer is making a relationship to understand identity as well, right? Like you can't project an identity
Yes,
out purely in a sense that like you're going to completely transmit what it means. It can only be witnessed. By you or the other person. But what how do you distill like what the human is beyond that, right? Like if I change every day, I'm still me, even if I put on different masks. So that's fascinating.
I did want to
definitely.
add, I wanted to add a fun fact that I learned yesterday about Bitcoin. So, as Shibboleth mentioned, I just like kind of started slowly rolling out my project called Ephemera, which is all about time on Bitcoin. It's like a deep time perspective of Bitcoin, thinking about what Bitcoin would look like to someone thousands of years in the future, or an alien, and how we would communicate that. There's a I just did a How Many Pod episode with Casey on it. If you want to go watch it, because he's a very good listener in that episode. There's not that many episodes where I'm the speaker, he's the listener, but he did a great job. But anyway, because that launched yesterday, I got a bunch of DMs from people kind of sharing ideas and what kind of things it made them think of, which I love. I love, like, every time that I put out some of my weird woo woo shit, there's always people that pick up the threads and send me deranged DMs that I absolutely love reading. But one that I got was, someone told me that apparently time is the only external variable that goes into a Bitcoin block. So Bitcoin is entirely self-referential in terms of the signatures, the hashes, the addresses. It knows everything within itself in terms of constructing a block. The only thing that you need to tell a Bitcoin block when it's mined is the time that it was mined at. And it's crucial, right? Because Bitcoin relies on the longest chain. So you need to know that the block that you found is at a timestamp that's after the block that was previous. So you need to know all of the time, like you need to know the time in order for the chain to be constructed. And it's the only external data that goes into a Bitcoin block. Literally everything else is self-referential. And I just thought that was so crazy. Like that's wild.
Wow, that's like a quantum yeet. I don't know where I am after that. Huh, interesting. I'm curious, like, do you guys think that time is something that like happens to you? Do you think that time is something that you move through? Do you feel like you are in control of time? Do you feel like time is in control of you? Like, I know that that's kind of a perspective question, but thoughts?
I feel like time is what we observe. If you think about it, in order to perceive anything, there needs to be a relation to it. So, in order to perceive time as moving, we must be that which is still. And if you look at your own experience, you can see like all the changes your body's gone through, your mind, your emotions, your sense of self. But what's perceiving that? Like, how can you perceive that unless you are still in relation to that? So I tend to think like the ground of being, call it consciousness or awareness or whatever you'd like, is still and perceives the passage of time moving from beyond it.
Whoa. I feel like everyone got a little bit too stoned before me today. Um, but no, I totally agree. I just want to, but definitely, this could be a definitely good late night stone talk. Because what is time? But at the same time, it's like one of the most structured things we have universally. Like it's one of the things that at least every like no matter what language you speak, um, everyone uses the same 24 hours, which is and the calendar dates, which is interesting.
Someone once said that Beyonce had the same 24 hours that I did. Boy, did I get moving after that.
Yeah, that's uh there's actually some good songs about that.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I have a question for Erin, because today, I don't know if you guys know, but today is the solstice. It's the longest day of the year, and tomorrow is the full moon. So, just wondering if Erin has any perspective on what's going on in the
Yeah,
planets.
the
Full moon
Ooh.
blog.
strawberry moon report.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, anytime I can answer an astrology question, obviously. Yeah, I'm in Berlin right now because I wanted to be, well, for more reasons than this, but part of it was that I wanted to be here for the longest day of the year because it's so far north that you get just like a ton of sunlight till like 11 p.m. here, basically. So I would say definitely get some sun worship in. Like just go sit in the sun, maybe don't stare directly into the sun, but you could like face the sun with your eyes closed and just kind of soak it in. Um, yeah, just like enjoying the kind of peak of the seasons. That's always a good thing to do. And then in terms of the full moon, it just makes it a little extra crazy because a full moon is really just like when your sort of external self is at opposition with your internal world. And so that's why like people are always like, "Oh, it's a full moon. I'm just feeling so crazy and so scatterbrained." It's just because it's not as easy to align your different energies and your different desires. And so you often find that like opposition in yourself or in relationships. Particularly with this full moon, it's Cancer Capricorn, which is the mother father aspect. So it can be with like motherly love and affection versus like paternal authority, rule making, anything that kind of fits into that dichotomy. You might feel like a little bit of a war within yourself, or you're noticing a war between like a desire to be empathetic and loving and just sort of shelter someone or be sheltered yourself versus like the disciplinarian, the authoritarian cracking down and saying no, it has to be this way. So that's always the tension that kind of comes up with the Capricorn Cancer full moon. And then I will say, I think the empathetic maternal side is winning out because it's the solstice and that's where the sun is. So I think there's a little bit more push in that direction, but that's really the tension of this full moon. Thanks for asking. I always will go off about this shit.
That was beautiful and so illuminating. Thank you.
Hey, I was wondering if anybody, you guys were talking about time. If anybody's been watching that show, Dark Matter.
Yes.
Just started it
But man,
yesterday.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
no spoilers. No
amazing.
spoilers.
I'm just saying, like that's talk about time, like so weird, like oh, dude,
I'm
got
glad
my
someone
brain
brought it
like
up.
broken
Say
sometimes.
less. Say less.
I'm glad someone brought that up because I just finished reading Dark Knight, the book, what, 2 or 3 days ago, and yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that some of you guys are going through the show. So I'm gonna refrain from giving away any spoilers or anything, but there are interesting, just like philosophical questions about like what makes you you, or like what version of yourself is the real you, or in a world where every version of yourself is the real you, how do you discern yourself of you know other versions of you that have had different experiences and different ideas and different made different choices, so on and so forth. How they're all technically the same version of you, but at the same time none of you are the same you, I guess. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about like the plot or anything just because some of you guys are going through it, but fantastic topic. I mean, fantastically relevant story for sure in terms of this conversation.
That's a nice contrast. Makes me think of the sun and moon axis of Capricorn and Cancer. The you that's you, and the you that's not you, and the you that you became when you made certain choices or were in a certain environment. Can I just like ask the question that is in the title of this space? Like, do you, and anyone can just jump in, do you feel like you're PFP? Does it feel like you? Or is there a word that's not feel and more that maybe falls under like is? Like, is it you?
Yeah, I mean, I am a cartoon. We're all cartoons, right? Like, but I mean, it is super ironic, and I do actually want to, like, Erin's the only person that has her photo, from what I could.
No, Parker too. Parker
Yeah,
too.
that's me.
Damn.
I am actually a blue
All right,
goblin.
word. Well, I am a cartoon. You're a blue goblin, and but I do think it's super interesting to highlight because yes, I think coming into blockchain with anonymity being a key feature, and not having to have like a LinkedIn profile has been, it's liberating and great. Um, but there is downsides to it. Like there's a lot of people that leverage that to do kind of scammy efforts, and I've been like conflicted with that lately. Is like, is anonymity like super beneficial, or is it kind of a way for people to leverage and just like serial launch scams? Um, and I don't know. I've just been. Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or am I the only one that's kind of like,
I'm 100% on the side of like there is a certain creative freedom that can only emerge when you dissolve like certain identities, right? And you may not even discover what those aspects of yourself are until you begin to explore them. They don't just like appear in front of you. You have to like enact them, which means you have to participate in behaviors, whether it's like posting or interacting with strangers online or whatever. And so I think there's actually something really beautiful in that. I think it's why a lot of people and artists in this space kind of like start undoxed and end up doxed. You can't go the other way around. It can't be done. Um, I mean, certainly anyone could do anything with anonymity that is obviously harmful. We can't take that away. But, anyways, I think I've just like, in my general considerations, I often think of like what can only emerge when you're like completely anonymous, and it's usually a sense of freedom.
So I have a take that might be it's pretty spicy, and
let's go?
I'm hoping that this audience will be able to receive it and not take offense on either side, because I'm going to make a comparison that I think might be offensive to both sides of the
I'm already
comparison.
pissed.
But but something that I've noticed, uh I was like not a part of the anon sphere until ordinals. Like I've always been half doxed or fully doxed. Like it was never, I never really like was behind a profile or a PFP that was not my own. Um, and getting into this culture over the last year, the thing that finally made me understand it was I was like, aha, this is the same kind of vibe as the pronouns debate, where there are people that are like, this is my pronoun and it's very important to me that you respect it and it's how I identify. And if you're a normal, good person, you respect that, right? Like you're like, yeah, okay, that's how you want to be called. And it's very crucial to you, even if it's not crucial to me and it's not something I understand fully. I understand that for whatever reason you have that's personal to you, this is how like you want to be identified. And that's like totally fine. But then there's like people that at the most extreme ends weaponize it against you, right? So like, you know, in the pronouns case, it can just be like someone who goes way over the top with it and like uses it to like terrorize people who don't get it right, even if they're well meaning. On the anon side, it's like, I mean, we all, I think, are familiar with the way that anons can terrorize people in this space. But like, you know, it's kind of this thing where like I give you, you know, the grace as another person to identify how you want to identify. And like, I obviously will respect that you have your reasons for that. But then you can take it too far and like go extreme with it and kind of like use it against people. And I've just, since I made that connection in my mind, it's like I see it everywhere. Like it's the same type of like social conventions between the two groups. So yeah, again, hope no one's offended by that, but that's kind of the way that I've come to understand it.
I'm pissed. No, let me also eating.
I think that's really I think that's really interesting because it like never had that experience of like existing as an anon account. But from what you're saying, I can see how the being anonymous becomes its own identity. So what initially sets a person free from identity then becomes a fixed identity in and of itself. So then we're just like back to square one.
So you're telling me that that is a catch 22. But I guess my beef with it is because some artists like Banksy and some art that have like earned the notoriety and it plays a role. Like Banksy, if he's doxxed, will have a lot of charges and have depending on if they'll be pressed, etc. But what I've been thinking about lately is like why we uplift anonymity so much in this space, particularly around projects that you know have notoriously just been like serial ruggers. And I'm like conflicted because that's one thing I love about the technology is you don't need to define who you are or let anyone know. But I do think it's a net negative, and we use the word onboarding a lot, like where we want to onboard, but like these situations are huge offboarding situations. Like people think this person or whatever, and they end up kind of leveraging that. And I don't know, I've just been kind of
I think it's
working through that.
extracted out, right? Because if you think of the DNA of this space before most of us even got here, like anonymity was the most key feature, right? That you could make transactions completely separate from like visibility, right? Like that was coded into the experience initially, and then now like a lot of people have joined the space and we have a lot of opinions on that, and so we're just kind of like forced to like take sides or protect a certain thing, right? um, I mean, scammer's going to scam, like whether it's a Nigerian prince in your email or some other setup. But I don't know. It's like I kind of like intend for that to just like be part of the sacred aspect of cryptocurrency. I
Yeah, I just feel like there's such big economic like extraction happening that it's like there is there is merit to discuss like what social consensus is around and I don't know. It's interesting because like I said, I am super conflicted. I think it's definitely like necessary, but then I think there's been more damage done to some degree. Or that's difficult to say, but I think just reflecting back on like the Ethereum run, there was just so much extraction happening because that's a possible an option, if you will. But there is no really defined metric or something to discuss about it. But I do think that there is some type of community level accounting, or you can hold people accountable, or at least educate people on like the pros and cons of participating with anon stuff.
I still think that the
I
most trustworthy person in the space is a developer with an anime PFP. I stand by that.
I mean, I disagree. Like you look at like backdoor contracts. There's so many like because you can just spin up a new account. You can't spin up a new person that's truly immutable. It's like another email is like a proton click away. Um, and it's very far and in between. You get very righteous people doing, like, and I think if you put those people on a pedestal and give everyone the benefit of the doubt, you kind of just, you know, I don't know. I think it's a bit naive.
Totally true. That's totally true. I mean, I feel like been equally burned by like mid-level doxed entrepreneur people that like came into the space and were like, I'm doxed, so we're cool. And they like put in their bios, they were like X Fang, X Apple, X whatever. And those people did the most damage. We're still recovering from that. They put all their like
That's super true.
LinkedIn profile. Like I was just like out of here with that shit. Like I don't know.
That's totally true.
I think with doxing, it's like, I mean, there's very, very few people that are actually doing something so important and so controversial that they like would need to be fully 100% anonymous from every single person, right? Like, but I think there's like, I mean, Satoshi is an example, right? Like, it's great that Satoshi is fully anonymous and that literally no one knows who he, she, they, whatever are. Um, but like very few people are doing that level. That being said, I think there's a huge group of people that it's beneficial for them to not be publicly identifiable. Like, right, that's a pretty new thing that we have like a digital identity that any employer, friend, family member, ex-girlfriend, whatever can go through and comb everything that you've posted, you know, throughout your entire life. Like that's a very new thing, and I think it's completely reasonable for people to not want their identity to be so public, right? But those people probably still are known by their closest friends on the internet, right? Like you might be Bunzi or whatever to everyone else, but then in theory, there's people that know who you actually are, what your actual name is, or where you live, or what your
Yeah,
job is,
that
or whatever.
reminds
And I
me.
think that's kind of more the
I was
line.
talking to Farmer Joe, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not doxxed." I was like, "Dude, you just did a video interview." He's like, "Well, I'm not name doxxed," and that was the first time I heard that. I was like, "I guess, yeah, yeah, gives Farmer Joe, dude." But I don't know. It is kind of a black hole of a conversation, but I do think it's as all these like new Bitcoin L2s coming and like all these promising like you know things. It just reminds me, and I'm feeling reminiscent of like the kind of bull run of like Ethereum and just how um, I don't know, just personally what I'm doing, due diligence on like projects and stuff that, and just something I've been considering. But by no means do I think this take is correct. It's just something that I've been thinking about of just um, how much money has gotten drained.
Yeah, I mean,
I
what?
think Bunzi a good I just want to add a good heuristic for a project that's adding utility, regardless of whether they're doxed or undoxed, 99.999% of them are bullshit. So that's an easy
So you're
answer for you right
saying
there.
there's a chance? Oh man.
I mean, my my one thing is vibes. Like I've tried to onboard so many people. They get on Twitter, they just see a bunch of like anons shit talking each other and are like out. So it's more of like I think anonymous should exist, but to your point, in a noble way, because most of the people just use it so that they can like shit talk in ways that it's just hard for me to imagine that most normies are gonna want to deal with anons like talking shit about them with no kind of recourse.
No, I think you're right. You need to have like a taste for that. Or
I just see it as like unprompted GPT. You're just like, I didn't ask for this, but this is pretty funny.
I will say it kind of goes both ways. So from 2013 to 2020 thereabouts, I have worked for multiple companies in the Bitcoin and broader crypto space, so on and so forth, and I was all under my real name. And And then I don't really remember why, but for some reason I just slowly started transitioning to an anon. So it was like really once I started getting
Dude,
into
that
digital
goes
art
back to
around
the
that time.
gender thing. That's so funny. Sorry, continue.
Uh, but yeah, and it was so when I now that I've fully dedicated all my time in this space to digital, on-chain art, whatever it might be, kind of in this corner of it, and everybody in this corner of the space has only ever known me as proper, right? And so, this something kind of funny now is a month or two ago, right after Bright Moments Venice, I face doxed myself on Twitter because people kept tagging me in pictures, and I'm like, guys, I'm not doxed. I'm like, okay, screw it. Like, people doing it, I can't really get ahead of it, so I'm just gonna post a picture of myself and you know choose a picture that I think I look decent in. So I've kind of come full circle again, but it is having kind of recreated a new identity for myself a few years ago now at this point. There are people now that I talk to or I've even become friends with that I met while I was working like in the crypto space under my real name. And maybe they don't realize now that I'm the same person in the same way that like a non-friends of mine, they're people who have been in this space for a long, long, long time too, and maybe they're people I had met over those years, and now I don't realize that. Oh yeah, this is that person I met back in I don't know 2015, and I don't know. I will say one thing kind of funny is, I was talking to my therapist a year or two ago. Shout out mental health, and she was I was she was I was explaining to her, like my job, and obviously that forayed into, yeah, I'm like anybody that I work with kind of knows me as this pseudonym, name proper, all these things, and it eventually like turned into this conversation where I was saying, I see proper as like an extension of myself, but I don't see it as a piece of like I don't see it as me necessarily. I'm certainly I am I'm not gonna get into that, but basically what her she was like, I don't think you realize that proper means a lot more to you as a person than you realize. And the more I thought about it, I think the more she was right. Where it's I am insert first name last name, and I am me. But at the same time, when I spend almost all day every day now under this pseudonym, she's probably right. And yeah, I don't know. I will say, back when I sold my CryptoPunk in like late 2021 or early 22, whenever it was, people were very upset. And it's like, we've known you this entire time of you being in the digital art side of things as your CryptoPunk. And I'm like, guys, I'm still proper. I'm just gonna have a different profile picture now. And it was like people still make jokes about that, where like random times when my punk pops up in some random context, they're like, dang, it's proper. And like people will post old memes that have my CryptoPunk in them of like making jokes of it or whatever. And I'm just like, wow, it's been like it's been what, 3 years now since I sold, or 2 years actually, since I sold my CryptoPunk, and people still have that kind of remnant feeling of me being that CryptoPunk, even though that whole time I've still been proper, just under a different profile picture.
If I may, I love to chime into this. I think that we all are all one of one originals. I always say to artists and others, and I think what you just said, proper, makes perfect sense. That we simply want to try to be the best version of ourselves and improve daily, and like to be able to contribute to the world and have a positive impact. Um, you know, while we are here on this planet, I think that's the goal. I think that we all should strive for. Doesn't matter if you're doxed or undoxed. I think I to each their own. Just like Aaron said, we gotta respect people and their if they have goodwill and good intentions. I always say, everybody has a voice and a story to tell, and I think everybody deserves to tell their story in their own way. So be who you want to be doxed or undoxed, but just be a good person and just compete with yourself to be a better version of yourself daily. I think that's what I would want to contribute.
You have the same 24 hours as Beyonce. Just remember that.
I'm totally with that, and I'm shaking it up and moving it, and everybody else that doesn't drive with me to the left.
Hell yeah.
Damn, that was
Wow.
dang.
Well played. Damn. That Proper, what you said about your therapist saying that the identity of Proper was valuable to you, made me think of how we do, like, often, whether on purpose or not, like, end up with fragmented digital identities. And in each fragment, you may install or create a certain code, an essence of like what that is. But sometimes the value is not like what it is, but also what it is not. Meaning like that identity is free from XYZ. So I don't know, just a wild little thought there.
Yeah, no, that's that's
It's a
how I
little
think.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, who you are, like who you are here in particular, is like a different thing from who you are in other places or who you are overall as a whole being. And like people have stakes in being here in like this scene or whatever this is. And like it's always a question of like, is this person have like, are they have a stake in the identity they've built in this place? Is it more worth it to them to maintain that than it is to try to pull some bullshit, pull some scam? And I mean, you can kind of tell with people. I mean, it's not infallible, but it's like when I'm thinking of working with a person or not who is anonymous, who I just know their identity here. That is what I personally look at. Like, is it more worth it to this person to try to screw me over and ruin their reputation, or is it more worth it to them to build this personhood that they're building here, and to like continue building the presence that they're building here? And I mean, yeah, it's the same if you know their name and their face. Like it's the same question. Like, is it going to be more worth it to this person to screw me?
I think that's perfect. I think that's a perfect way to kind of round out what I was trying to say too. Is like it goes both ways. Is like, who cares if that's a real PFP and it is like their reputation. Like, how much have they done? What's at risk? I do think it's pretty equal. Um, you know, like Banksy's done a lot of. I know I use that example a lot, but it just kind of makes the most sense for the full anon approach. But like how much legwork have they done for that reputation, quote unquote? I think that's the best metric because I don't think being doxxed, you know, especially as we move towards a more digital future, like, um, so that's a really good point. One other thing that's interesting is like people say they don't want to dox because they don't want to get like robbed. Has anyone heard like that take?
Yeah, I mean, safety is real online, right? And it's only dissolving into something perhaps a little more threatening. Not to like be fear mongering, but it's pretty real, you know?
I I agree, but to like be fair, like there's a lot of rich people, and like I think out of anyone that could be secure, it would be crypt. It's like I don't know if people just carry very loose keys on their phone, or they have all their assets on their phone, or um, do you think is there like notable stories, or is it just like really easy to rob crypto people and just like
There's
shake
like
them
a whole
down?
list of events that's like been public on like specifically crypto related, like violent robberies. So
But
yeah.
it's also like you can get somebody to like, you can wrench attack somebody's bank card too. You can just be like, send me this bank transfer instead of like, tell me your seed phrase. I guess it's just like the perception that like, if crypto people have like the former perception that crypto people have money,
Well, the
that would drive people to do that.
Yeah, the jurisdiction of tracking down like fiat currency, like in a like I don't know domestic setting versus like international, like it gets a little hairy,
Yes.
right? There's only so
Yes.
much that like the law is going to do on behalf of your Bitcoin. Sorry, they're not saving your coins, but the bank they've got money set aside for losses. They've got billions of dollars to deal with that sort of thing. So um, yeah, I have a separate identity question about how like PFPs often are collections and whether or not you guys get the sense that like putting on a certain PFP allows you to wear the kind of identity of the collection and sort of become part of the hive. Because I think, we can also track certain behaviors. Like, I don't know, like maybe there's certain behaviors you affiliate with a bored ape. Maybe there's certain behaviors you affiliate with Milady, like that are kind of like built over time culturally. Um, any takes on that?
There are.
I feel like
Rob
this
the
is
border.
something
Oh,
sorry.
let's go.
I feel like this is something I
Yeah,
should probably consider more because I just realized, wait, I actually created a PFP collection,
yeah.
right? Because I'm a photographer, I'm shooting real people. Sometimes I don't think of it as such, but it certainly was intended to be a PFP project from the start. So I think it'll be interesting, like once the inscriptions are out released to the wild and people start actually like claiming ownership of them and using them as PFPs, like how that will manifest, because they are photographs of people. But I deliberately created characters and created them to be like the most cartoony representations of humans, so that they could connect with more people. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a fun PFP holder will be. So yeah, that'll
That
just be
is
interesting for me to
super.
see develop.
That's so interesting because your collection is the one to do that, um, because it is an extension enough, but it is super funny to think that like someone's seeing them like using someone else as their PFP. Like there's so much humor in that. It's like almost like what's that one movie where like the like horror movie where he puts a skin on someone's face? Like literally you're in someone else's skin or what is that?
Oh yeah, like Leatherface. Is
Yeah,
that
or
the
like
one? I think it's a
Silence of the
pretty common
Lambs or some
trope
shit. I
Yeah,
don't
though.
know.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
real.
yeah. Yeah.
Damn, that's
Well,
fucking
also
funny. They're
stylistically,
gonna have people like, yeah.
stylistically, like your photography is like high contrast. Like you can see everything in like high fidelity, beautiful detail. Really quite love it, by the way. But that's like the complete opposite of like a hat, like a digital design of like a cartoon character, an awesome snail, whatever it might be. Um, but you did such a great job translating the characterhood. But I don't know. You'll have to ask your models to see like, hey, like these people, they got antics with your PFP, right? Like who's gonna be pulling that off? So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the models think about it too. Like they signed up for this knowing what they were getting into. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if like someone adopts a fun PFP and like really claims it as their own, and then what does the model think about that? But then the model in the photograph isn't like who's being represented. You know what I mean? Like it's a character. So it wasn't a true representation of the person that modeled for me. You know what I mean? But then we could take it another step further and say
They can
that
have
all
Beyonce
photos
do
are
a
a
whole
lie in a
collection.
way. Yeah.
Beyonce does a whole collection, 24-hour collection, and then everyone just gets a different photo of Beyonce and uses that. Now we're into
celebrity
some weird
PFPs, we've
territory.
been here before.
Have we? I missed that collection.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
more so that celebrities have launched PFP collections, less of their own face per se, but they gave it a shot, man. Beyonce minted 24 collections in 24 hours. I don't know if you know that's the alpha. And if you can't mint 24 collections in 24 hours, you should probably get out of Web3.
It looks like this group's a good mix, but feels like in most of the rooms I'm in, it really is just like your most expensive PFP or piece of digital art that people use. So it feels like less identity and more like flex, I guess. Like in a way, like a Lambo's a flex and says something about you. I don't, or it's
Yeah,
just very fluid.
I
Like people
definitely get.
change all the time.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was gonna say, I definitely feel that, and I definitely get a lot of flack too for my PFP. At least, it's not immediately like recognizable, but it's the reason my PFP is what it is because it's the first NFT I ever bought back in like early 2021, and I wrote like a whole thread about for me as a person, what does it mean? Because it was kind of like that was the moment I fell down that rabbit hole, and I stopped doing stuff in DeFi. I stopped looking, exploring other parts of the crypto space, whatever, and I really shifted my focus to digital art and on-chain art thereafter. Um, but it's yeah, it's very. I think this technically is my most expensive PFP, but it just so happens that the first NFT I ever bought was a Grant Yoon 101, and um, so it's definitely a little sense of luck, but I kind of get it on both sides. It's like it's certainly a flex too, but at the same time, it's like the reason people are comfortable rocking a PFP that is super expensive, not necessarily in my case, but for say a collection with a high floor price, for example, is because it's not necessarily because it has a high floor price. It's they're rocking it for the reason that it has a high floor price, right? In terms of community and how many people out there can you immediately resonate with when you see that they have the same PFP as you from the same collection I'm in? And how many people out there have made friends with someone just because they were a bit easier on opening up with someone because they happen to realize that, oh, you have a CryptoPunk PFP, like this person, I have certain ideals and kind of ideas, Jesus, of what I want to get out of the crypto space, what I see as valuable, so on and so forth. And if this person's rocking this PFP too, that means that they probably have somewhat similar ideals as well. So I don't know. I certainly get it. I will say that I have been on like the receiving end of that where they're just like, oh, I can't remember what this one phrase someone used was, where an artist told me that I was like popularity writing or something, where they're just like, oh yeah, you're only rocking that because Grant New's popular, and I'm like, no, I literally just bought it for an ETH 3 years ago, and it just so happens to have gone up, but it like literally represents me as a person and why I'm here in the first place.
If I may, I love what you said, but at the same to the opposite side of that, I never changed my PFP since early 2021 unless I'm just like trying to for like a good cause, supports a project, right? And I'm in the ape community, the punk community, every community you can mention it, the stoic community. I see a few friends that Gabe's collectors here, like my friend Shay. But I feel like I've been accepted, and goes back to your being your original best self. I think I've been empowered by people since Clubhouse days when I came into this space to be myself and contribute in my own positive way. And I think that when you do that, communities accept you, and I don't share with anybody, I mean, unless they're good friends that I'm in the I own a punk, or I own a an ape, or whatever else that is out there, right? I mean, like I said, there are certain you know there's certain PFPs like Gabe Stoics that I rock, and I'm a big collector of that. Sometimes when it came out, I did support it and change my PFP but for the most part, I don't want to be identified. And again, with all due respect to Proper and everybody else that feels like that's the way they build community with like-minded people. I think that as long as you're a good person, you will be able to contribute. And so yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I think people resonate with who you are rather than your PFP. At least that's the way I like to.
And I will say on that note too, like I completely agree with that standpoint as well. I mean, I mean, there's a reason that I sold my CryptoPunk. Part of it was just like the direction I saw Larva Labs going and how Yuga has been handling the brand. I think I made the right decision, at least for me personally. But that was really my only PFP, like true 10K PFP collection, whatever. And I think I'm actually more in your camp than the opposite because I just PFPs as a concept or projects that are defined as PFPs don't seem that interesting to me. I get them just for me as a person, right? So while I did say what I said before, in a way I'm also like a bit more aligned with what you just mentioned versus fully embracing that community aspect, whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to say I could certainly see your perspective too.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is like that era of like having a board ape, like let's not ignore like a lot of this space is financially trading and doing a lot of, and it kind of symbolized to people like, hey, I'm smart. Look at I bought this early. Look how much money I made, and that's kind of my understanding of like why some of these collections, really did what they did and have that kind of feeling like a flex where some people bought it because they could like show how much money they spent, but at the same time, it was kind of, yeah, just a symbol of like, look at I'm smart. You want to follow me on Twitter. You want to follow my trades and things of that nature, and find those like-minded people. But it's the same in the physical collection world. Like, if someone has a Picasso, they're gonna have that in the front of their house, like in their dining room, and like that's technically a flex too. It's like, look, I have an original Picasso, and it's just a scalable version of that, and that's why I think you see a lot of these people, still repping board apes, and like it's funny because like the irony is like you're down bad, like, and it's funny to see how tribalism and like people being a part of a community and why they're so welcoming is like you guys have financial incentives to like you guys are in like a little small business together, whether you like it or not, is like if you floor it, like that guy's bummed. It's super interesting that dynamic of like once you get financial instruments involved, like these PFP collections, that's the quote unquote community. And I'm just curious of your guys' thoughts on that because, you know, it's a community until you sell, or like I don't get it. It's like um, I'm just curious on people's takes on that.
I think yeah, it was a financialized community. I think when there was insane kind of speculative activity, it feels different now. It feels like um, because there's like a bear market, and because um, there's not as much of a sense of like if I can follow the right person and copy their trades, then I'll make it. To me, like now, for instance, like you mentioning an ape, it's like what you see with somebody who has an ape is that it's like more valuable to that person to continue having an ape than it is to like to to get out of it or to to take um whatever offer they can get on it. And like I look at these pictures people have now as like very strange and unique statements of conviction, like because it's just like you're here, like you're here, you're still here. You you have this to say, like I don't know, like you're saying this means more than something else, and like it means more than like another picture, but it also means more than like what you could sell that for, and it means more than like what might have more social traction. I have like a punk on top of a penny, which I think I'm trying to make a counterpoint, a valuable thing and a cheap thing. and I don't know, it's also from our collection. They're also pennies. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, cause I have a punk, but I'm like at this moment, it's not like a massive flex or anything, like having a punk, and like my best friends, some of my best friends like troll me about it constantly, and they're like about like, oh look, the punk PFPs are saying some stupid shit again, which is not an uncommon experience, but like, I don't know, like, to me, like, there is something like that punk. I got it and was like, I'm just not even going to think about selling it for like 5 years. And I think a lot of people who are around now are showing that they think in that way. You know, what she's saying.
I'm actually all of my alts and all of my accounts have like right click save PFPs. Like I'm just kind of there for the vibe. And I'm in crypto and I have, PFPs, but I don't know. Maybe I just like didn't really think of like building sort of the brand or an existence behind each one in a way that I felt like it needed a material attachment that I was not like needing to point toward. It's also for anonymity, right? Like I don't actually want my brand to be connected to a portfolio, to be like in relationship with capital and have that be like an interface of experience. Not that anyone's really looking at that deep, but I'm pretty pro right click save for any collection. Um, I mean, why not? It's like kind of the ethos. Like if it's really a community, like you find the identifying aspects of the art that you like and you sport it because you enjoy it. No more, no less. Yeah.
I miss it. Now that they make you like, if you have the like blue account or whatever, it's like hard to change your picture. They make it hard, like you can't do it for like another 3 weeks and you have to be re-verified. And it's like in like little discords, it's so fun to just change picture of like whatever the thing that people are talking about on the day, like the meme of the day. And I super miss that. I dig it. It's like most of those are right click save pictures. They're not like somebody's putting on an NFT. They like Photoshop something and have like a funny picture. But like that's like,
That's interesting. Imagine if the algo and stuff like that didn't play a role and like actually like boosted your account, how that could possibly change
because
things.
it's fun to do,
Um,
right?
yeah, I think like especially as people that are a part of multiple things, but personally too, it's like I don't do it because it does do that shit to your account. Like that's interesting. Like Twitter being the town hall and like the main communication center for this ecosystem, and like starting to think how much of an influence that has on just kind of the subconscious of like what we do is pretty interesting.
So we also have the emergent phenomena of the rise of thematic continuity across PFPs, and I think the best example of this was Mog, where like this was a shitcoin, and they just dominated putting the Pit Viper sunglasses on any PFP, so you could be your PFP but also represent that brand, so you could have that kind of split, right? Um, so you get to kind of like transport your identity, or you could represent two PFPs in one, which is kind of just a little bit meta. I don't know how many layers deep we're going to go at some point, but I always thought that that was super interesting.
I mean, something you see pretty often um, outside of that is, now that I think about it, I don't really see it on Bitcoin. But what you see quite often, at least on like the hardcore digital art side of things, on say Ethereum or Tezos or wherever, is people will set a PFP and then they'll edit the background to be a piece of digital art too. I think the Mog glasses from Miladies is kind of an extension of that, just from a different perspective, like a different community's perspective. Um, Maybe you could say it's the DGen perspective, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, a punk with an autoglyph as the background, or, a cryptodes with a terraforms as a background, or, something that you saw a lot for a while was people putting a Fidenza as the background on their PFP. And It's certainly to an extent. I think that that can be a flex, even if it is just like even if you really like them. I mean, at one point I had like my Fidenza as the background of a CryptoPunk, and it's just like, um, my profile picture with this PFP and background is like whatever it was, like $250,000. Certainly, I don't have either of them anymore, and I certainly did not realize that amount of money. Don't get me wrong, but that is, I think that is also, going back to the conversation about flexing and whatnot. That certainly starts to that it's much easier to find yourself in a sort of a subtle flex if a punk with an autoglyph background or an ape with a Fidenza background or whatever it is. At least 2 years ago, there's certainly some it definitely more easily coming off maybe the wrong way to more people, but at the same time, like, I'm sure most people don't give a shit really about how other people are interpreting it. It's like, these are my assets, and if you don't like it, cool. If you do, you don't.
True, and forget it means nothing as soon as you exit Web3. That it all goes to zero, and it's completely reduced to aesthetics and vibe, which I love, by the way. So I think we're actually going to wrap up the space. This was a really compelling conversation. It had a lot of depth, and we got a lot of really great takes from a lot of really cool minds. And there was some really nice sentiments shared. So I really appreciate you all. If you're a speaker, thank you. If you are a listener, please follow all the speakers on the stage for more excellent takes and excellent vibes, and perhaps their upcoming collections or their past collections or the hard work that they're doing every day. You guys are pretty awesome. I just want to say on behalf of Control, Penny is going to be live streaming Stack Sats in a competitive way. So if you're interested in winning an uncommon sat, an allowless spot for the upcoming Knot collection, and also an original piece of physical artwork from Penny, you should go check out Penny's live stream. And if you want more details, just like go to our Discord, etc. But this has been really cool. Any closing remarks from any of the speakers?
Just we all have the same 24 hours as
That's right.
Beyonce, and you're really, if you're not shaking it, if you don't use it, you lose it. No, but I actually recently connected with Gabe, and we're cooking up something super dope for Nashville. So if you're heading out that way and you're creative and want to get involved, hit us up. We got some cooking that is probably going to melt all the barbecue food and just really cause a lot of destruction, but also inspire the kids. I don't know if any of that made sense. I just made it all up, but it's pretty dope. And if you're going to be in Nashville, hit us up.
You heard it first here, folks. All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good chat. GG.